This video is sponsored by FilmConvert.
Hey guys, Flo from Off to Lancy. I'm a French Australian filmmaker based in the French Alps, and today I want to talk about adapting in filmmaking. I will discuss those moments when things don't really go as planned and what to do in those situations, my own experiences in documentary and freelance filmmaking, and my tips on how to turn things around. Before I start, don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this one, and let's get into it. So in documentary and freelance filmmaking, a lot of the work is actually done in reacting and adapting to different scenarios. In documentary, it's more about the action is happening in front of you, and in freelance filmmaking, it's more about managing different aspects of a shoot, from the planning to creating and to taking responsibilities. So over the past 8 years or so, I've had my share of cancelled jobs, things that had been changed last minute. But one of my recent jobs, which was in Iceland, things went wrong really early and I had to constantly adapt. A lot of content on YouTube, especially about filmmaking, is about positivity and things going well. But with filmmaking, I think things rarely go as planned. So I think it's important to touch on that subject. So of course, this is based on my own experience and projects, but the core of this video can be applied to all sorts of work. So back in September last year, I went to Iceland for a week, and the project was originally to create an adventure travel video and later make a behind-the-scenes video. So I was going there with my sister, and since I had been to Iceland before and already made a video, I didn't want to make a traditional travel video with like car shots and landscape. I wanted to use my sister as a talent, and since she's pretty sporty, film her hiking, running, exploring, discovering the place, and almost treating this video as a spec out for an outdoor brand. And since the volcano was also erupting there at the time and had been for months, I thought I'd also use the location to shoot most of the content there, so a large portion of the schedule was allocated to that location. So we then booked hotels and the car and pretty much planned the whole week accordingly. So the first thing that went wrong was at the airport when she actually couldn't board due to an issue with her ID card. So long story short, I had to go to Iceland by myself. That introduced many problems, the first one being that I had just lost my talent. So from the get-go, I knew I couldn't get that spec out style that I had in mind anymore. And I was also losing the opportunity to get any proper behind-the-scenes footage of myself. This also meant that I was now by myself to do all the driving, the planning, and carrying all the gear that was originally intended for 2 people. I also had to cover the costs of the hotels and the car. And basically that meant that the project was getting a lot more expensive and I wasn't going to make nearly as much money as I thought I would. My son at the time was also just 7 weeks old, and at the time I felt quite low, being in Iceland by myself, spending time away from my family. The second major issue was that the volcano had decided to go to sleep just a couple of days before I landed, and that hadn't happened for months. So to recap briefly, I landed in Iceland by myself, I had lost my talent, and the main location that I was supposed to shoot at wasn't going to happen anymore. So needless to say, I felt quite low and uninspired. So during the 3-hour flight to Iceland from Paris, I had to think of ideas on how I could turn this around. Since I didn't want to still make a traditional video, I had to think of an idea or concept, a project that would work, that would allow me to shoot quickly, that would be visually impacting, and most importantly, that would still work for the client. Luckily, the client being Artlist, a music and SFX provider, I decided to create a video that would focus on the elements of Iceland. So the water, fire, ice, wind, and to only use their music and SFX to create the audio and the atmosphere for the video. So instead of having the talent at the center of the video, interacting in different locations, the focus became the interaction with the elements and the locations became the talent. So this meant that I didn't have to worry about audio on location, I didn't have to worry about a talent anymore, and since I had been there before, I knew the places that would work best for the project that I was now shooting. And that helped me a lot since I was doing all the driving by myself. So I only had 6 days there, and if you have ever been to Iceland, you know that distances take a very long time. Sometimes I would just drive 2 to 4 hours for a single shot. And even if some shots would have looked amazing on the video, I had to prioritize the shots that would work well for that concept. So the list of places and things that I wanted to capture prior to this happening kind of worked as well for that project because, like I said, I didn't want to make a traditional video, so I was already thinking of focusing more on certain aspects like the elements of Iceland. I just didn't know that this would become the whole project. So as I was saying before, the volcano was actually sleeping when I got there. So I spent about 2 days. I went there 3 times. No luck. So I decided to basically leave the area and headed east for the rest of the shoot. And this is when the volcano decided to erupt again. So it was 10 p.m. I had been awake since 6 a.m. I was 3 hours away from the volcano, and I needed to be in the morning 4 hours east of that location as well. So I knew that if I wouldn't get to the hotel the next day, I would lose the accommodation because of COVID, and the cancellation policies were a bit different. So I had to make a choice. I could sleep and go as planned, wake up in the morning, head east and just shoot all the things that I had to shoot the next day. Or whilst the volcano was still active, I could actually drive back 3 hours and then drive back another 7 hours to get back to my hotel and for the rest of the shoot. So I didn't want to lose that chance, so I decided to go to sleep for 3 hours, wake up at 2 a.m. and I drove 3 hours at 2 a.m. to get to the volcano just after 5 or 6. I think I got to the top about 7 a.m. But it was worth it. So when I got there, it was the worst conditions I've ever experienced in my life, I think, in terms of shooting. I was drenched, it was super cold, it was extremely windy. Obviously shooting near a volcano as well has other issues in terms of like the heat and the lava. You have to be very careful. So it wasn't the ideal shooting conditions, but I knew that this might have been just my only shot at it. I kept a safe distance, of course, but I just wanted to be close enough to justify for the visuals to justify the sound design. The weather actually introduced another problem, and this was the fact that I actually couldn't use my main camera, the BMPCC 6K Pro, or my drone. So I actually had to rely on my B cam, which is the Canon EOS R, and I've talked about it on the channel before. This is why I like having a big cam. So without it, there's no way I would have been able to shoot anything. So I did manage to get some pretty good shots of the lava flows. I was pretty happy with it. I actually went there one more time just the night before I left, and that time the weather was pretty much perfect. So I managed to use the 6K Pro and also to drone over the lava fields and the crater. If you're interested in knowing more about this project, feel free to actually watch the end video, Elements of Iceland, and I've also made a cinematography breakdown and a sound design video, so feel free to watch them as well. And now a quick word about today's sponsor, FilmConvert. So I've talked about it on the channel before, but basically FilmConvert enables you to add film color and grain to your videos. I use it as a plugin with Final Cut Pro, but you can also use it with Premiere, with DaVinci or After Effects. You have real film grain for an authentic and organic look. There are nearly 20 film stocks to choose from, and my favorite is probably the Kodak 5207. And all the footage that you've seen from Elements of Iceland has been graded with FilmConvert. From the lava to waterfalls and ocean waves, it really helped me getting the look that I had in mind. I use it with all my cameras, the 6K Pro, the Canon EOS R, the Mavic 2 Pro, since you have a range of camera profiles. I actually already made a dedicated video about FilmConvert, so feel free to check it out. And don't forget to use the link in the description if you want to save 10%. Things rarely go as planned in life, and it is true as well for filmmaking, especially when it comes to documentary and freelance work. Sometimes it's only a change in schedule due to the weather or location or talent that are not available anymore, but on some occasion it can be a lot more and the whole project has to be changed, pushed or even cancelled. Of course, I was lucky in a way with this job that the client was actually sponsoring the video and part of the trip, and the concept was actually an idea that I originally had thought of and not them coming to me with a specific one. So even though I had to change things around last minute, it was still serving the same purpose and probably ended up being a more efficient and successful way to do it anyway. I think with every project you approach, there are 3 steps that I think are very important. First is to spend time in pre-production to avoid the amount or to limit the amount of unforeseen events. 2 is to have a backup plan for each of the main parts or the most important aspects of the shoot. And 3 is to be flexible when possible in order to adapt quickly. Seeing the silver lining can also be helpful as well. For example, if I wasn't there by myself, I probably would have been a lot slower, so I was very quick, I could make my own decisions, I didn't have to check with anybody, I didn't have to direct the talent or to adapt in that way. So even if sometimes things go wrong, it can actually create new opportunities. That's it for me for today, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments of a situation that for you that didn't go as planned and what you did to fix it. Don't forget to subscribe and be sure to use the link in the description to save 10% on FilmConvert. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.